Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Escape to the Quarter Bin. As always, I'm your host, Adrian Johnson. And on this episode, I got three books that I'll be bringing to you today, fresh out the bins. There's one book in particular that I'll be presenting at the close of this episode. That's going to be a condolence, to the great artist who passed this week. One of two, actually. One being, of course, James Earl Jones, who wasn't necessarily a visual artist, but still an artist nonetheless, and a seminal figure in so many of our pop culture, memories and cinema going, but the book in question that I'm going to present is actually done by the other artist who unfortunately passed this week on the same day as Mr. Jones. And that's John Cassaday, who passed on Monday at the all too young age of 52. So the book that I'll be presenting at the close of this episode will be a remembrance to him as well. It's one of his best. But let's get started. First up, Starlord Megazine, cover dated November of 1996. Now, Starlord was actually, Starlord is a character prominently featured in Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I've not seen the movies. I know, but I know that Starlord is definitely a character from the title Guardians of the Galaxy. And this is where I know him from. I know him from this story done by writer Chris Claremont and then John Byrne and Terry Austin back in the 70s. And this story is actually from an old magazine. It's like it literally is a magazine size, a black and white magazine that Marvel used to publish, called a Marvel Preview, if I am not mistaken. That's off the top of my head. I believe it was Marvel Preview. I'm not sure of the issue number, but I know that this story here that Byrne and Austin illustrated was featured in that magazine. And so basically it reprints that story inside of here. And what's inside of here is actually a reprint of the 1982 reprint of that story, but in color. And it also has the addition of, at the beginning and the conclusion of that story, it has Michael Golden art and what is termed as a framing sequence. And it's just as it sounds. There's artwork to frame the beginning and the conclusion of the story, and then you got the meat of the story, within those confines. But yeah, so that's what's reprinted in here, along with another, I believe, a preview of they were doing a Starlord. This was actually the lead-in to a Starlord miniseries, an updated miniseries in '96 by artist Dan Lawless, and I believe it was written by Timothy Zahn, who many of you will probably know as he was doing, I believe, Star Wars novels in the '90s. I seem to remember that name as a kid, but I definitely know that he was involved with the Star Wars novelizations and some of the original, I think, the expanded universe as well. So you have a good lineage here, as far as just within this comic, within this reprint, and in fact, the magazine line was something that Marvel was doing in the mid '90s as kind of like a value-based line, if you will. This comic and cool Michael Golden artwork on the back. This is brand new. $2.95 is how much the magazines were, and what you got for $2.95 was usually like a 64 to a 96 page comic, and it was magazine was what Marvel was doing with this line to reprint some of the classic stories, like I said, in a value based format. So you would get like a lot of comic for that $2.95. You know what I'm saying? So in the magazine line, that's how I got introduced to the John Byrne Fantastic Four stories, because they had a Marvel Superheroes magazine, and that reprinted in those issues. It was 6 issues total. It had the John Byrne Fantastic Four run, the Frank Miller Daredevil run, of course, for Klaus Janson. Then you had the David Michelinie, Bob Layton, and then John Romita Jr. Iron Man run, and then it capped it off with John Byrne's Hulk run from the 3 teens, like 313, 312, somewhere in there. But yeah, that's how I got introduced to those stories as a young collector, you know. And so that magazine line was a very good idea. And then if you look it up, they have other, magazines as well, you know what I'm saying? So if you ever come across them, it's a good value. But let's take a look inside the book here, man. All right, so as you can see here, stories by Chris Claremont, art by John Byrne, inked by Terry Austin. And Terry Austin actually inked the Michael Golden framing sequences as well. So as you can see here, this is that prime Michael Golden. He's really starting to come into his own. I think he had just done Avengers Annual 10 shortly before this, like about a year prior to this in 81. And here, he is being inked by Terry Austin, who at this point, man, could do no wrong. So, you see here, these first 3 pages are Michael Golden, inked by Terry Austin. Then we get into, there we go. Then we get into that Byrne Austin. And the original story was published in 1977. So this is right as they're getting into, right as they're teaming up together to start on their run. They're highly influential, highly seminal, fantastic run on Uncanny X-Men. You know, you talk to any, real fan of a certain age, and they'll tell you that, man, that run by Byrne and Austin, their artwork still holds up mightily today. And you can see the beginnings of it here. Just look how clean this stuff is, man. This is fantastic. Oh my goodness. And just all the textures that you can see here. This is that putting in the type of screen tones, within the work. And, a lot of Austin's work looks like it was probably done not only with a nib, but also with rapidograph as well. So that rapidograph, excuse me, it's going to give you a very, very dead line, and that dead line, done properly will give you that very clean line, especially on like machinery and straight lines, So there's stuff, and with John Byrne's penciling and the way that he would do like, machinery and robots and whatnot, that's a great texture there. This type of stuff, is definitely stuff that, you would be able to attempt with a rapidograph, Look how smooth these curves are too, So it's clear that they're going to be a team supreme, you know what I'm saying? Like, just, man, whew, stuff is, whew, just crazy good. Oh man. And I think shortly after this, they actually did Byrne and Austin. It's interesting. It's interesting that even while they were doing Uncanny X-Men, having their run there, the two of them did make time to do other really, really cool stories. I mean, they did obviously covers together, but they actually did full stories as well. There's a Red Sonja story that you really don't see, reprinted a lot because, of the licensing issue, but there was a crossover that it was I think a Marvel team up that I believe Chris Claremont John Byrne and Terry Austin did on that, and the artwork on that is clean. The artwork on that is, oh man, and cool story, cool little story. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't necessarily just Byrne and Austin doing the art, but also Claremont. He knew where the bread was being buttered at. You know what I'm saying? So he would find a way to like, hey, let me jump in and write some stories too. You know what I'm saying? And so he and Byrne made a really good team. As far as, collaborating on stories, inside of X-Men and outside of X-Men, when they could. And also, Byrne and Austin did a Spider-Man, an Amazing Spider-Man annual. I think it's annual 13 that Marv Wolfman wrote. But that's a really cool story too. That's a really, really good art too. So, John Byrne, was really cooking here, and just Austin, he found like for that period, he found his primary, artistic, better half. Maybe not better half, his equal, to really make both of them shine, because their artwork is so highly regarded even today. But yeah, definitely pick this one up if you can find it. I was very pleased to find this reprint in the back issue bins. Oh, that's a great spread, man. Gorgeous work. Wow. Oh man. And here it was in this story that Peter Quill came face to face with his dad, as you can see here in this panel. And I think in the movie, like I said, I haven't seen the movie. I haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy, any of them. But I think, Peter Quill, played by, what's the guy's name? Chris Pratt. He meets his dad in the movie, but his dad is Ego, the Living Planet. I don't know. I'm not sure how that would work, but okay. But yeah. So this is the conclusion of this story, and then here's the last of the framing sequence by Golden here. And then here is the limited series that I was mentioning. Starlord, apparently this magazine was in conjunction with Marvel preparing a Starlord miniseries that was due to come out, I guess, shortly after this. And it was written by Timothy Zahn and Dan Lawless. I'm not too familiar with Dan Lawless. The name seems familiar, but this artwork is, oh man, this artwork is gorgeous though. Wow, I may have to track this one down. Before getting this magazine, I had never heard of Lawless. This stuff looks fantastic. Wow, it's a long preview too. Man, woo! Holy smokes, yeah. Oh man, yeah. I'm definitely gonna have to find this, man. This is, oh yeah. Okay, so it was due out in October of whenever this was printed. This was 96. Okay, so October 96, that series came out. But yeah, that is Starlord Megazine, which reprints the classic story by Chris Claremont, writer Chris Claremont, and artist, the Team Supreme, John Byrne and Terry Austin. All right, next up, from Image, cover dated March of 1993, it is Darker Image. That's by Sam Kieth, Jim Lee, and Rob Liefeld. And it features their three creations. This is Blood Wolf by Liefeld, Death Blow by Jim Lee, and The Max with Julie, I think her name is, by Sam Kieth. And this whole cover image is obviously drawn by Sam Kieth. Dark Image. Hey, this was at the height of Image right here. I believe this particular issue sold 1 million copies. This was when like 1 million seller, was like that was the mark of the day, for Image. That was like, they took it almost for granted that that's what they were supposed to be doing. So if a comic did not sell 1 million, they were kind of crestfallen, as I've heard some recollections, as I've read some recollections, if a comic sold 700,000, it was considered a failure, as crazy as that sounds in this present day. So the first story you have is the Max, and this is that prime Sam Kieth work right here, man. I'll be honest. I'll be totally transparent. I never read the Max except for like a couple of issues. I'd never even seen the cartoon series that was so popular around that time. Well, a couple years later on MTV. I didn't have cable growing up, but even then, I never saw an episode of that when I would be at a friend's house who did have cable and could watch it. Just wasn't interesting to me. But man, I do recall that the Max for its time was it had what you would consider a cult following, if you will. I'd read from other people that the Max, people would write in the letters column for the Max, the regular series, was actually as important as the comic itself, helping some of the readers deal with like, feelings of depression and loneliness and suicide and, all of which are featured, within the story, apparently. And I just think that's great. That's remarkable. That a comic series has reach outside of just, looking cool, but can actually help people and be a meeting place for people to help, cope or even deal with some of their personal issues, So that's wonderful. From the Max, we transition over to Blood Wolf. And this is Rob Liefeld's character, who obviously is a takeoff on Lobo. And, there was no fooling anybody. We all could see that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, even down to the stylings, you can see, the stylings of Simon Beasley going on here, and the fact that Lobo wrote this intergalactic, chopper, that's like intergalactic Harley Davidson, and here you have Blood Wolf riding an intergalactic chopper that's also a big space blaster pistol, I guess. But yeah, and then yes, I mean, you can tell by this, totally Lobo. In fact, you see Lobo walking right there. He's walking right by him, right there. So Liefeld is just having fun, with a different art style. I think I had on Liefeld's podcast, when he talked about Darker Image, he was just mentioning that this was something different that he wanted to do. He wanted to try a different art style, more of a European kind of art style in some ways too, and so you gotta give props to the guy for just trying something different for sure, because we all knew him from like his regular, type of work, but this was something new for Rob, and so hey, why not, go for it, man. Then obviously that's Cable. All you got to do is just add one more little arm to that right there. But yeah, that's obviously Cable, you know what I'm saying? And yeah. So this stuff is actually kind of fun. It's kind of cool to see, Rob get this textured, if you will. Yeah. I dig this. I really do dig this. And there's Blood Wolf taking his ride and using it as a giant pistol. Right here though, I noticed these faces right here. I wondered if Todd McFarlane, didn't ink some of these because they have like that elongated, kind of feel that McFarlane would do when he drew like, his kind of cartoon type faces. So I wonder if maybe Liefeld, didn't just pass a page over to McFarlane and say, hey, here, check, take a whack at this. You know what I'm saying? Because they would do that, quite frequently in the early days of Image. Just, pass pages amongst each other, ink each other's, covers, whatnot, just back in the early halcyon days, of Image. And I always like this. This definitely Lobo breaking the fourth wall, you know. Blood Wolf looks at the camera. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And he takes off. And then the planet explodes behind him because he left a satchel charge. And so, yeah. So then that is Blood Wolf. That is Rob Liefeld's portion. Then we got, Youngblood, Bloodshot. This crossover is coming, which would eventually turn into Deathmate. And I covered this on a previous episode. This Blood's for you. Hey, what can you do? All right, so to close out this issue, we got Death Blow. And this is Jim Lee's character. And this is him going through his kind of Frank Miller period, obviously. The Frank Miller of Sin City at this point. And again, just like Liefeld in the previous issue, in the previous story rather, it's Lee trying something else. It's Lee trying his hand at a different art style, because they could. I mean, at this point, they are, they're doing very well with Image. Anything that they put out, we're consuming. You know what I'm saying, as just fans of this stuff. And this stuff for Lee is really good as well. You know what I'm saying? It was cool to see him try something different. And Lee was no stranger to inking himself as well. But yeah, it was just good to just see him trying something different, and it's not bad. It's not bad. This is real good. This is very good. And I forgot to mention that this was written by Deathblow was co-created by Brandon Choi as well, who I mentioned last episode as the co-creator of Wildcats. You can almost say he was like also one of the fathers, at least on the creation and writing tip, one of the fathers of the Wildstorm universe too. And so I try to give him props, whenever I can, because not enough, is given to him. I'm not sure what the situation was as in terms of ownership. Maybe he sold his share of the characters to Lee or whatever the deal was. But I always like to give him props. When it comes to talking about Wildstorm, especially these early stories. Yep, that is Darker Image by Sam Kieth, Jim Lee, and Rob Liefeld. So, for the last book that I wanted to feature, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, as a remembrance of artist John Cassaday, it is a book, but what I have is not just one book. It is several issues of the same book, and that book is Planetary. I saw these in the bin, and I was like, man, I don't think I have had any John Cassaday in my collection for a while. This issue here, number 3, this came out actually about the time I had just gotten accepted to the Art Institute of Atlanta. It was the spring of 1999. I want to say it was like May. So yeah, this tracks perfectly. This is cover dated June of 1999. So June. So this would have come out in like April or May of 99. And I was just accepted. I had just graduated high school the year before, so I was going to the Art Institute, and I remember I had this and the first 2 issues as well of Planetary, and I think that Travis Charest, that #1 of Wildcats, I had those in my bag, like folded. I know, but I didn't care. I just thought that they were cool books, so I wanted something to read as I was riding the train to downtown. To go to the Art Institute, I'm saying, to my classes there. And the thing that struck me, especially with this, is like, man, Cassaday's art, man, just off the bat, look at this right here. Like this here, this is the issue that made me a true fan. Like the first 2 issues, of course, I wouldn't have kept buying it if I didn't enjoy it, but seeing this guy, this Hong Kong cop pulling like a Chow Yun Fat, this ghostly Chow Yun Fat, you know what I'm saying? And then inside here, God, look at this. Whoo! That's Cassaday. Then Laura Dupuis, later after marriage, Laura Martin, aided and abetted by David Byrne. The colors on this is where Wildstorm, just this whole period is where Wildstorm was really coming into their own again. Like there was a lull after like 95, and the really bright spot was, the stuff that, Travis Charest was doing on Wildcats and on covers for Wildstorm. And then you had, Cliffhanger coming out, but stuff to where like, these books here, they were bringing Wildstorm back proper, and just, man, Cassaday was a big part of that. Prior to this, he'd also worked on Desperados, which was a Western series, a mini-series, a couple of mini-series, rather. And, but yeah, like these, if you've never read Planetary, I really do not want to spoil it for you. I definitely want you to check it out and be surprised. But definitely know that John Cassaday, he was already great coming into, this particular series, written by Warren Ellis. And he had actually been in the industry for a while prior to this. He had done some work for Marvel, I think a Union Jack miniseries. I think he did also a Kazar #1. No, I'm sorry. A Kazar -1 for like his flashback. They had like a promotion called Flashback where for a month, all their books were going back to -1. It's like an origin type of thing. But when he teamed up with Warren Ellis on this, this may be like some of his best work. I mean, you got Planetary, and then after this, he did, what did he do after this? He did Captain America, obviously. And as I'm filming today, in fact, very coincidental, as I'm filming today, the Captain America series that he and writer John Ryber came out with, I believe, in 2002, late 2002, 2003. It definitely was a reflection of 9/11. And today, as I film this, is the anniversary of 9/11. So it is very, very apropos, in a way, as unfortunate as that is, but also fortunate that we have, a record of Cassaday's work, to look back over and to just, really see him at some of his finest, and yeah. But getting back to what I was talking about with the Art Institute, I had these in my book in my book bag going to the Art Institute, and I just remember being bowled over by Cassaday's artwork, man. I just really, really love this stuff. I loved how naturalistic, his work is. It was an antithesis to what was coming along in in that period. You know what I'm saying? Not only just from Wildstorm, but in the industry as a whole. You know, and smooth storytelling, smooth sense of like, you know, space and composition. You know, almost widescreen in a way. You know, but just his compositions were so good. And his choreography, you know, it wasn't like heavy duty. Like he wasn't gonna knock you over the head with like, look how beautifully, you know, choreographed this stuff was. Even though it was, you know, his work just really just great reading. But yeah, I just wanted to give a mention to Cassaday, you know, just in passing, just due to his untimely passing this past week, you know. And if you ever get a chance, definitely, please. Planetary is in reprints, several paperbacks, several hardcovers. There are absolute editions of it, the big books of it, you know. But also check out a lot of other Cassaday work as well. I think the other thing that many people would mention too is his work on Astonishing X-Men with writer Joss Whedon. Beautiful. Those are absolutely beautiful and a great story to boot. And as a callback to earlier in this episode, that stuff, Astonishing X-Men by Whedon and Cassaday, is absolutely a love letter to those Claremont, Byrne, and Austin X-Men comics, you know, that they both obviously grew up with and just wanted to really, you know, give a love letter to, you know, and it definitely shines in there, you know, once you read those. So definitely check out, please, check out Planetary, get those Astonishing X-Men, and also check out Desperados. You know, even if you aren't a Western fan, I think that would definitely surprise you, you know. And check out his Captain America. The first 6 issues, I believe it is called The New Deal. That first story arc, that is some of his best illustration as well. You know, so just wanted to say rest in peace to John Cassaday. Not only did the industry, you know, lose a fantastic, you know, incredible artist and creator, but, you know, someone who, you know, left this plane much too soon, much too young. So guys, that's all I got for you this time. Thanks as always for watching Escape to the Quarter Bins. You guys take care. Peace.